Hello, hello. Well, I don't know about you, but I have had one hell of a day. So I thought I would kick back and follow on from our readings of Our Dark Mother and Revelations and cozy on up with the Book of Nod, which is the other seminal text from Vampire the Masquerade. If you're not familiar, this is a collected works, shall we say, from everywhere and anywhere. Bit of history behind it. Apparently, our Lord and Saviour Beckett, who I have opinions about, but that's a different stream for a different day, traveled the world speaking to kindred all over the shop, and also some non-kindred, which is the interesting part that gets forgotten quite a bit. Collecting stories and theories about, hey Meeples, hey Valkian, about the origin of vampire kind, who the granddaddy of the vampires is, ergo Cain. Yes, that Cain from Cain and Abel. And if you didn't think that there were biblical overtones with Vampire the Masquerade, wow, this book, so much biblical nonsense. So if that is not your jam, please, by all means, maybe skip this stream if you're going to be offended by, I guess, literary takes or artistic license on biblical stories. This is not the stream for you. We are going to be reading excerpts from the Book of Nod. Now, this is a book, a source book that came out for first edition. It has recently been republished, reworked and republished for fifth edition. There were some issues in the first copy where, as beautiful as it is, and yes, I love this book immensely. This was one of the first books of Vampire the Masquerade I ever managed to get my hands on. It is very difficult to read. It was not typeset correctly for people to read. If we take a look at this sort of a page, obviously I have lit this pretty well, but you can see on this page the dark art with the dark text, not very accessible at all. If you've got visual impairment, this is not an easy book to read. However, hey Jax, in the fifth edition, they fixed it quite a bit. They did some outlining and retypeset the whole thing. So it is actually pretty easy to read from a visual perspective. Still quite small typeset, but yeah. So this is one of my favorite books. I own all but one edition, and I'm working on it, that has ever been reprinted, including the deluxe Book of Nod, which you can still get from Renegade Games Studio. It comes in a massive freaking crate. So if you are not in continental US, yes, shipping will be a nightmare. I pre-ordered it many moons ago and was very overjoyed when earlier this year it finally arrived. There is video evidence of me being with my friends from the Bahari group at Red Centre by Night and opening it and going through everything. If that is of interest to anybody at all, seeing a very overheated me in, I think it was February earlier this year, let me know. But in that crate, there were scrolls and manuscripts. Hey, Spacer Kitty, that were supposed to be telling the story of what De Laurent and Beckett had managed to pull together when they were trying to bring the Book of Nod together. And apart from manuscripts and paper assets, there are also some artifacts. There is up in here. There's a couple of statuettes. There is a vampire skull. There is a tablet, a seal, which is basically a rubber stamp of this bad boy here, which is what was used across a number of your paper assets to designate what was included in, or what made the final cut for the Book of Nod, as Beckett was supposedly going through it and, authenticating and going, does this tell the right story? That sort of a thing. And there's a bunch of bits and pieces of particular interest to me, given that I've known the Book of Nod and known of the Book of Nod for many, many moons now, is actually this bad boy, which you can get as a PDF download, so you don't have to purchase the huge hefting crate. This is the Apocrypha. And this is a bunch of things that were collated and collected that didn't make the cut. Very interesting, because to date, we haven't really had much of an insight into what wasn't included. So I think, as far as, from a collector's point of view, the crate is freaking fantastic, because who doesn't like new toys? But from a storyteller's perspective, this is the juicy bit. This is the bit that you're really going to get value out of, because you can go and get the digital downloads of the Book of Nod if you don't want the actual thing. This is new content. We like new content. And so in here, you've got things that have been referred to here and there and everywhere. There is a letter introducing the Book of Nod. Basically, it is wrapped up as someone intercepted this crate, which is in and of itself kind of a delicious piece of storytelling. But it goes into the scrolls, the manuscripts, the stone tablet that was included, the celebrities, the personalities that crop up during it. And then it has a section called Apocryphal Texts. Now, if you are familiar with the the older sorts of lore of Vampire the Masquerade, you will know that there are a bunch of religious groups that have taken bits and pieces from various words of Cain, of the antediluvians, of the prophets of kindred kind that crop up from time to time. And with these as an avenue for storytelling, there's quite frequently fragments of scrolls or artifacts that otherwise, help give validity to these religious groups. So a lot of your Apocrypha are tied in with those. There is a Shal fragment, the Shroud of Kaymakli, of my particular interest at the moment, Tales of the First City. So I think if you already own a copy in whatever format of the Book of Nod, do yourself a favor and get at least the digital download of the Apocrypha. # not sponsored. Because if you are looking to include, any sort of Nodist application into your story at all, even if it's a footnote, these texts or fragments or bits and pieces will add to your world telling. So what we are going to start diving into tonight, rather than just me reading from the Book of Nod this time, is we are going to look at Proverbs. And if you're out there and you are not familiar with Proverbs, in the Book of Nod itself, give me 2 seconds, folks. There is a section in the Book of Nod where it goes into, what's a good way of doing it? Hey, it's Nez. Advice. Advice for the kindred. And it's just a double spread, but it is basically a go-to guide for things to do, things not to do. Tips and tricks, Proverbs. If you want to go and get advice, who to talk to, who not to talk to. So, in the deluxe Book of Nod, we get this delightful little envelope that looks like it's got, a couple of ink stains on it. Very pretty. I appreciate this kind of inclusion. And then inside is a bunch of index cards. And we see that this is much bigger, much bigger than just what is contained in that double spread there. Two seconds, sorry folks. And by the way, while I am going through all of this, if anyone has any questions about the Book of Nod, pop them in chat. Would love to hear and answer as best I can. I am not an unending source of knowledge. I don't know everything, but I am more than happy to answer what I do know, and what I don't know, I can get back to you on. So, taking a look at these index cards, talking again about the seal, that stamp that was included in it. Anything that has been stamped with this has been included, and we see a typed up proverb. Some of them have commentary. So this one, clearly included because we've got the stamp, and it is in fact the first proverb that is included on that double spread. It says, "Go not to the clan of the Rose for advice, for they will give you no single answer." Poor Toreadors. The note underneath it is in, I assume, handwritten typescript that says, "This refers to the fickle nature of the Toreador, something which is legendary." Oh, they're not fickle. No, they are. They absolutely are. But taking a look at this, like it's got staining around the edges. It's just, for something that is printed on a machine, just it has such a handmade quality about it that I do have some negative feedback for some parts of the deluxe Book of Nod, but this was good. This is a plus. You get this. So yes, talking about the Toreador, don't ask them a question because you won't get a straight answer from them. Next up, again, included. Watch Gangrel, and when they are uneasy, leave. And the commentary is, this is quite apropos. For my part, the Gangrel are the most observant of all kindred, perhaps even more so than the Nosferatu. I followed this dictum quite vigorously. And its inherent common sense never failed me. Gangrel are often willing to help you escape if it seems that you are listening to their common sense. So again, a little bit of additional storytelling that we get with these extra pieces. It wasn't just a straight, I guess, lift and shift. Even the manuscripts have been styled in keeping with what period they might have been discovered in. So, yes. Moving on to the third clan piece of advice in our Proverbs. The first to die in any jihad are Nosferatu. My poor babies. My poor, poor babies. The commentary, again, this one was included, says, My sire used to say the Nosferatu know where the ashes lie. They know who is who and what is what, and they are the first to die because they can provide adequate and well listened to warning to any prince. Truth be told, anybody who doesn't want to listen to the Nosferatu will pay with their own life. Because while they may have their own agenda, if they dare to offer advice free of charge or seemingly free of charge, it's pretty important. All right. Next one included, and this time, hi Krieth, this time not a clan-specific proverb. Bless those who fight our natural enemies. Keep safe the water bearer, the builder, the undertaker. These are not to be prey. And the commentary on this one is, to this day, I will not feed on these people. Water bearer, to my mind, means firefighter. Of course, many kindred ignore these restrictions and feed on whomever they please. Note, however, how many elders still follow these practices in theory, if not in reality. If anybody has played Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, you will know that there is a scene where you can feed from an undertaker, and it is not a good idea. Okay. Going on with another feeding restriction. Let not the priest, nor poet, nor peasant see you feed. Not one of them will leave it be. Priest, for obvious reasons. Poet, because they'll keep on writing or singing about it. And peasant, because there's something to be gained by having knowledge like that. And if someone can, I guess, wend their way out of their current position, they will. Or they will go, oh, you're one of those things. Yum, 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 let me in. The note on this one says, this translates to the modern day quite easily. While priest is self-explanatory, the poet is perhaps not quite the same today as it was in the nights of yore. I would say that the newspapermen of our age are the most feared, with the broadcasters being the second most dangerous. Finally, the common man will often go to great lengths to uncover a secret that he barely grasps. The common man is often immune to the masquerade because of his lack of high-mindedness and dour demeanour. Back with another clan. Let honour be your shield, your sword, and your cloak. Let Ventru save face, and you will go far. So basically, try and let the Ventru keep being top dog. Because if you undermine them, they're going to take you out. Let Ventru save face. These words guided my feet through the world. Wherever I went, whenever I went to any domain, I presented myself first to the prince and then to the Ventru elder of that city. I wanted the Ventru to understand that I did not wish to disturb their careful structure and that I was no threat to them. This usually made for very easy operations, although there are a few notable exceptions here and there. In the notes, you're also getting, I guess, a bit of a glimpse into the process of gathering all these bits and pieces. Words to live by even for not a kindred. To rid yourself of an enemy, outlive him. The personal motto of many kindred, and a good argument for non-aggression against the lupines. Yeah. Vengeance is best when the blood is still hot. A direct contradiction to the Russian proverb. Still, I always preferred warm blood to cold. And this one's a little bit interesting in that it's been stamped for inclusion, but then we see that there is a question mark and circled. And if we go and take a look at the Proverbs, where did I put them? It is fascinating. I guess, like any proverb, though, it's kind of open to interpretation, and so leaving it open-ended, almost riddle-like, is kind of its, I guess, its point. So when we take a look at the double spread of the Proverbs, it is there. It is there, and it has a footnote. So taking a look at the footnote, we see exactly the same thing that is written in the notes. However, that question mark in the circle, why is it there? Why is it there? Why? There's a story in there. Know that in all times there will be Caesar. Pay him his due. It is a good idea to pay your taxes wherever you are. Tax evasion has become the single greatest threat to the masquerade in the United States, and this may be spreading. I mean, if you are wanting to know why someone seems to have immense wealth, taking a look at tax records, worse than a lack of blood. Well, I mean, humans are a virus with shoes, but tax evasion and tax records will get you every time. Every time. Why do you think so many ghouls are accountants? Something in there. Fight the first battle, win the first war. When everyone's quoting Proverbs, this is the one that older Bruja seem to like to chant. I guess that's in keeping with, strike first and strike hard. Watch your own chowder. On the lips of all is the honey taste of diablerie. Certainly the children of Tremere know much of the truth of this proverb. Ah, dear. Bloody Tremere. One sip of blood I take, 2 sips I accept, 3 sips I refuse. A commonly quoted proverb in Eastern Europe. And this is stemming from the concept of blood bond. So in Vampire the Masquerade, you can become bonded to another vampire by taking 3 sips of blood, unless you have something that changes that. And so that is talking to, yes, I will take 1 sip of your blood. 2, I guess I'll do it, but 3 will make me blood bonded, and so I won't. And a blood bond is basically at least a month long, again, unless there's some element of you that changes that. So a blood bond is where you will do pretty much anything so long as it's not endangering you too much, for the person to whom you are blood bonded. It can go one way, it can go both ways. There's a thing called a red wedding where both will blood bond to each other. That is why, oh, there was a red wedding between Banu Hakim and Toreador, which is why the Banu Hakim in recent nights has come over to the Camarilla from the Ashira. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on a huge diatribe of that. Bargain not with the darkness, in time it will take us all. And this one's a bit interesting in that it has a note, but then it's been scrubbed out. And I've been spending weeks trying to figure out what it is. I'm not very good at this sort of thing. When taking a look at like the tops and bottoms of words that you can't see the middle of and trying to figure out what they are. But yes, maybe I will take a photo of this, and someone who is infinitely better at figuring out what that is can tell me what it means. If I keep staring at it, it's going to annoy me. Ride the beast, do not let it ride you. Again, referring to an element of kindred, where the beast is the thing that makes you animalistic, gives you supernatural strength, like powers, that sort of a thing. It is I categorize it as the claws in the back of your skull and the voice that never leaves your mind. It's the thing that's always telling you, drink a little bit more, kill them, go hunt, go do this. And it's the thing that is in direct opposition to your sense of humanity. And the whole game of Vampire the Masquerade is basically a balance, or a balancing act rather, between the beast and your humanity. And again, this one has a little note that's been scrubbed out. I need to know what it is. That's it. I'm going to take photos of all of these. Make not friends among the poets, they will sing too much of you. Not unlike the one that we previously read. It's also got another note. So, basically fly under the radar. Don't be too cool. Don't be too ostentatious. Don't catch eyes, basically, as a way to preserve the masquerade. And then followed up with, be not known, seek shadows. And another rousing support of the masquerade. So a lot of these are, I guess, guidelines for how to survive as a kindred and how to protect the masquerade, and how to, ensure you live another night. When the cross has a point, find your safety. Inquisitors were often fond of sharpening their wooden crosses to use as stakes. It was useful to have their holy cross, so when their faith failed, they had a sharp thing with which to impale. I mean, makes sense. Don't have to like it, but it makes sense. This is possibly one of my favorites. Take gently from women, take directly from men, take sweetly from children, take haltingly from animals, from kindred, share, from the moon beasts, feast. And so this is a proverb talking to maintaining your livestock, for want of a better term. So women, multiple pregnancies, continuation of humanity, you want to make sure that you've got longevity in your livestock. Men, do it, be done with it, move on. If you have to drink from a child, do it nicely so that they're not as scarred as they could be by the experience. Animals, take sips. Like, they don't have as much as humans. Be gentle with them. Kindred, be polite, give and take, because you don't want to make enemies amongst your own kind. And from lupines, go for it. Which is interesting because lupine blood does some strange things to kindred. Be as a king, your sacred duty is to protect the weak and fight the mighty. Again, flying under the radar, don't don't be too ostentatious like a king could be, but protect your livestock, protect what you're feeding on, who protects you. Hi, cowgirl, playing a TTRPG for the first time tomorrow. Oh, amazing! Going to D&D for some friends. Going to look into VTM and Cyberpunk as well if D&D isn't the right system for my players. As far as large-scale published systems go, those are great ones. You've got 3 of the key ones. Don't forget as well that there are a bunch of independent TTRPG creators out there. Some do one-page instructions. So it's really super simple to grab and go. So, yeah, I'd love to hear how it goes. And if you try it and that none of them seem to work for your group, let me know what they did like and what they didn't like, and I'll see if I can get some different suggestions for you. How close to lupine? Like, would vulpine count? Oh, well, they're babies compared to wolves. Also, canonically, anything that isn't a lupine is more of a shapeshifter and tends to be, as far as I remember, more akin to a fae. And so dark blood does a whole other bag on kindred. It's that's a bit special. Yeah. That is another stream though. Great question, NV. Yeah, there's a whole 2-hour stream on that topic right there. The strong live by their own wages, the weak by the wages of their children. This has not been included. In fact, it specifically says exclude. And the commentary on it, an apt proverb, but it originates with the Kine of Mesopotamia. It's a good one for kindred to remember though, because you embrace a new child, you become dependent on their ability to keep you. They're going to become resentful, and well, diablerie festers where resent resides. There's a proverb for you. Writing is the mother of eloquence and the father of artists. This has also been excluded. So I feel like we're probably at the end of all the ones that have been included, and now we're on some Apocrypha. Oft repeated by a bloodline of toreadors in the East, but it appears to have mortal origins. Cowgirl, VTM does work well for one-shots. I almost predominantly write one-shots for VTM, and I run them at conventions. It can get a bit tricky because there is so much lore, but if you are willing to employ the approach of we're all finding this out together, one of my favorite ways of running a one-shot is you wake up and everybody has just been turned. And so really you're just finding out what's going on together. It does mean, as a storyteller or a GM, you need to kind of guide them a little bit more into what they can and they can't do. But it's a really fun way for new players who don't want to read a bajillion and one books to uncover what it's like to play a vampire. Yeah, if people would like to know my approach to writing a one shot for Vampire the Masquerade, let me know. I've been asked a couple of times, and I hate writing tutorials because I'm like, I don't know, I make it up as I go along. But I do have a bit of a system for it. So if people would like to know, let me know. What am I drinking? I am drinking Barocca because did you know that stress depletes your B vitamins? I didn't. And then I was like, I've been eating well. Why am I having issues? And today was a day, and I was feeling very lackluster at the end of my work day and a little bit teary, I'm not afraid to say it. And so I went, okay, I'm going to have myself a Barocca and see if I'm any better. And then realized it is red. I'm talking vampires. It kind of works. I really like the lore that I know from playing Bloodlines a couple of years ago. The Anarchs are especially interesting. The Anarchs are especially interesting. They are a bit of a splinter group historically. Again, history lesson. Once upon a time, there were vampires, and they realized that the world was getting a bit crap. So a group of them were like, "Hey, we should form a coalition, have a bunch of laws, make sure that everyone stays safe." There were another group of them that were like, "Screw that! You guys are hippies. Meh meh meh. We're going to go and be the big bads." The group that wanted to become a coalition, known as the Camarilla, the big bads, known as the Sabbat. And they were, diametrically opposed philosophical approaches to being a vampire. A little bit further on down the line, a couple of folk were like, you know what, these Camarilla guys, I mean, sure, they've kept everyone safe. Inquisition, we could have lost an awful lot more people, but now they're just being tyrants. And we don't like that. We're not down with that. And that's when the Anarch movement was created. Actually, somewhere in this, is it here? Nope. There is in all of these pieces of paper that came with this, a printing of, actually, I do think it's in here, basically the manifesto for the Anarchs. Do-do-be-do. Do-be-do-do. Yes and no. So I'll show you this first. So this is the manifesto, being a declaration of principles for the self-governance of the kindred of the Free State. Basically a manifesto of screw you, Camarilla. We're taking our bat and ball and becoming the Anarchs. They're seen as a bit of an upstart group, but they are by far the easiest of the main sects to be playing for new players because there's not a bunch of protocol and etiquette that's required. So if you're thinking of running a one-shot and you're not overly familiar with Camarilla protocols and courts and that sort of a thing, throw them into an Anarch game. It's so much easier. So much easier. And then you can have your Camarilla hoity-toities as kind of a big bad, which really works. Murder mystery one-shot. Amazing. I love it. I always like a murder mystery for a one-shot because it gives you a very clear goal of what you're trying to achieve, and you can set up the main clues in kind of a 1, 2, 3 way of going about it. So Vampire the Masquerade for Interview with a Vampire. I mean, it can be done, 100%. Absolutely can be done because they're vampires. But there won't be direct correlations. And you will find that interpretations of characters will come up and be a little bit off kilter. So there are some people who say that Louis is a Toreador, or Louis is a Ventru, or Louis is Malkavian, but then we'll say that Lestat is a different clan. And so that doesn't follow the logic of you are the clan of your sire. See, to me, Lestat is textbook Toreador. Although he has a fundamental Ventru quality about him, which is he likes to be top dog. And when he doesn't get his own way, when he isn't being, when he feels that his authority is threatened, that's when he gets his back up, and that's very Ventru. So, I mean, not unlike horoscopes, right? They're archetypes. And so what one person's interpretation of another person's personality might suggest is very this, someone else might see it differently. I would love to see how someone made Interview with a Vampire type universe work with Vampire the Masquerade. I think there's definitely a way of doing it. I just think you would need to suspend your belief. And if you are an extreme fan of Vampire the Masquerade or of Interview with a Vampire, you might find it a little disjointed. That's all. Valkian, I will get to that in a minute. Moving on. Friendship in days of prosperity is servitude forever. This is another one that's been excluded. Attributed to kindred, but this proverb comes from a tablet of mortal Assyrian wisdom sayings. So here we're seeing that there are some archaeological investigations that have gone on in collating all of these. Let your family be as a tree, prune the weakest branches that the whole family may be strong. Again, excluded, and the note just says inauthentic, though I feel like the Giovanni took this one to heart. If no other one, they took this to heart. They are very family oriented. They are very well known for culling the weakest among their number. Armand seems very Tremere. Yeah, I could see that. I feel like Armand could also be a La Sombra, who don't show in Bloodlines to the best of my memory, who is masquerading as a Toreador. But I can see Tremere as well. I can definitely see Tremere. If you wish a secret to be known, tell it to a Toreador. Whilst not entirely incorrect, this slanderous proverb appears to originate with Constantia of Ursius. And again, excluded. Ursius, for those who aren't aware, there is another book that kind of runs in the Dark Revelations Book of Nod called the Ursius Fragments, which are bits and pieces. It's, if memory serves, it's actually set in Dark Ages rather than Vampire the Masquerade, so medieval period. That is very well worth the read as well. Oh, he's very charm happy. Yes, 100%. Like, this is what I was meaning, that they don't fit neatly into a Vampire the Masquerade box. But if you wanted to take their personality and their archetypes and the main things that they do, you could fit them into a clan setting. 100%. 3 things a prince should never do if he means to prosper. anger the Bruja, embarrass the Ventru, and ignore the Nosferatu. This one's also been excluded. The linguistic structure is odd, and does not reflect the oldest proverbs. If original, it may have been changed over the centuries. Also reminds me, okay, I've got this feeling that I've read a proverb from like maybe Mesopotamian writings or something like that, that was very similar. Like, if a ruler wants to rule correctly, don't do this, don't do that, and don't do that. In the darkness, there is no rainbow. No confirmation of this proverb outside the fragments from Ursius. It's an interesting one, though. I wonder what implications it would have. The best way to defeat an enemy is to outlive him. Inauthentic. And it's also reflective of an earlier one that was deemed authentic enough and was included: to rid yourself of an enemy, outlive him. So I wonder if this is a case of vampire whispers. Reading up on VTM and interview because the murderer in my one-shot is, surprise, a vampire. Scandalous! The campaign is set in a traveling circus. He's an illusionist, and overcome by hunger, he caged the contortionist as a blood bag. Amazing. So, in... what is it? I think it is Revised Edition, which was the third reprinting of Vampire the Masquerade. Or perhaps it was taken out and put in World of Darkness, which is kind of the overarching universe building. There is actually a source for a circus-themed chronicle. Oh, what's it called? I think it's called The Midnight Circus. I believe it's called The Midnight Circus. You should be able to find it. If you do Circus VTM, you should be able to find it. I think it's available on Drive-Thru RPG as well, but don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I've had a proper look at what's available up there now. And I know a lot of stuff has come into print and then out of print through it again, but that may give you some inspiration. When the elders leave, it is time to fear. Excluded. A disturbing proverb, given that I've heard of no less than 7 elders across North America and Europe that have recently vanished or absconded. Nonetheless, the earliest attestation comes from Ursius, not older sources. And this is also kind of harking back to what is now called the beckoning, where elders are leaving and it's a portent of the end times, blah, blah, blah. If you must see love embraced, let it be done by your sire. Deemed inauthentic. And I guess this is a warning against embracing anyone too close to you, because again, it will inevitably lead to resentment. There are very few happy stories in Vampire the Masquerade of Childer being utterly beholden and in love and besotted with their sires long term, because it's not a happy life, being a happy existence. It's hard. It's nasty. It's not great. There are things you need to learn. There are things that change fundamentally how you do things from every aspect of your existence. And that is going to lead to resentment. So if you can have someone else being the focus of your resentment, why not? Nothing is more dangerous than a bored elder. Inauthentic. Yes, they start playing chess games with you as a pawn. every canine, oh gosh, as if by cue, every canine is a pawn on someone's chessboard in Authentic. Um, there's quite a recurrent theme of old vampires, elders, Methuselahs, antediluvians, playing chess with the world against one another. And I kind of love that this is a recurring theme because it's strategy, it's war, it's slow, methodical war. And I love it. Are there many vampires in the VTM setting that maintained long lasting and genuine friendships or even romantic relationships with mortals? Ooh, are we talking like Violin from Anne Rice? So, yes, but in VTM, it is you've got your kindred and you've got your humans, and there's kind of this limbo where you can be a ghoul, which is a human who frequently sippy sips on some vampire blood, gives you a little bit of superpowers and extends your life. And so the enticement is very, very strong for a vampire to want to keep their favorite human around a little bit longer, and so will give them the forbidden sippy sip. You've also got to remember that if you're following protocols as one probably should, you're not going to be embracing a child. And so you're already going to be an adult when you become a vampire. Therefore, the mortals that you are, I guess, finding interesting are either going to also be adults and therefore not live as long as you, or are going to be, they've got a shorter lifespan, is what I'm trying to say. And that becomes heartbreaking because then you're presented with this fundamental decision of, do I ghoul them or do I embrace them and change who they are forever, or do I watch as they die and wither and die? And so um, a lot of kindred you'll find in the VTM world. I mean, yes, they still fall in love or become obsessed with. Love has a different meaning for vampires. And that's stemming from everything you find intoxicating about life being replaced by blood. Basically, it is your panacea. It is everything you want and so much more. There was a recent book talking about bringing love and romantic relationships and entanglement and using relations as a tool for your vampire, called Bloodstained Love. So maybe you might want to have a bit of a read through that. But yeah, fundamentally, everything that a person previously as a human felt heightened their existence as an individual, love, sex, all that sort of stuff, is replaced by blood. And so the desire to become entangled with humans in that similar sort of way is reduced a little bit. I really ought to replay Bloodlines. Yes, yes. I mean, it's a fun game to replay, but it didn't age well, which is sad, because it could have. Even when it came out, our societal norms had started to shift, and so there were some editorial choices made that could have been improved. And I think, yes, you know what I'm talking about. Do not gamble with the beast, for in the end it always wins. Inauthentic, but still good advice. That being said, sometimes riding the wave is very, very fun. Give a Ventru a crown, and he will be content. Deemed inauthentic, but again, good advice. When you think you understand an elder's motivation, that is the time to start worrying. Inauthentic. I think he's just given up at this point in actually giving. Oh no. To find the greatest darkness, seek within. Ooh, moody. Just cut the whole Chinatown segment to make the black characters less voodoo and you're set. Yes, the Chinatown segment was there because at the time there was Kindred of the East that was released, and that's a whole other thing. Very problematic rule set, very tropey. Could have been done so much better. And yes, voodoo or voodoo for the black characters was just a strange decision. I mean, given the people who were in charge of the IP at the time, yeah. But with our modern sensibilities and being able to read in a more culturally sensitive manner, it just, yeah, I agree. But then, having predominantly white protagonists and interactions as well, like, you could have made the whole cast of that game so much more varied for its setting, and not delve into those tropes. And D&D absolutely does have a horrible history with similar sorts of things. Yeah, it's something that a lot of us try to change from within, question mark. Never underestimate women. Once embraced, they make the fiercest predators. Inauthentic, but so true. This idea of sappy white women getting embraced by vampires and then becoming la-di-das. Ugh, yawn. The safest way to assuage the rage of an elder is to amuse him. Says exclude, so it's not seen as inauthentic. Have a great day, cowgirl. Thanks for chatting. Hope to see you again sometime soon. And thank you for the follow as well. Much appreciated. So the commentary on this one is truth is not indicative of authenticity. But he doesn't say that it's inauthentic. He just says exclude. When the Ravnos leave, check your purse. When the Ventru leave, check your lands and servants. When the Bruja leave, check your defences. The tripartite nature of this proverb leads back to Constantia's collection, which is the Ursius fragments. It may have been edited. Exclude. Only a Nosferatu truly understands what beauty is. Excluded, and again, it's got a little question mark. Fear your enemy most when he is silent. Too true, because they're too busy to start back chatting and talking again. The more generous a Setite appears, the more wary you should be of accepting his gifts. Unable to confirm as of April 4th, 1989, exclude. So a little bit of date context. Treasure those who guard you, who bear your blood as their strength. Protect them from danger and cherish them as your own. For without them you are naked before the sun and helpless before your enemies. This is another excluded one, and it says, while wildly cited among the old clan, the saying appears to originate with them and should be excluded from the compiled work. So, old clan, Samitsi. Hunt the shadow sleepers. Think not on fear or hate. Hunt them for blood, for kindred's sake. This passage finds its origins in Das Buch von der Grabkrieg. No earlier citations exist. I probably absolutely butchered that German. Apologies for any speakers of German. They must not awaken, slay the one, and there shall not be a one when the sun sets. Found in fragments from Das Buch von der Grabkrieg, probably inauthentic, appears more likely to be from a prophetic text rather than a wisdom text. I mean, the last two, rather than prose sentences, are more in, I don't know if you can see that, appended poetic format. So it kind of makes sense to think of it as possibly a prophetic tome. And then we've got another one. When love and hate turn strange, and magpies filch the hours, and Judas limbs betray, know you are a figment, a shadow sleeper's dream. Remember, remember, dreams die when sleepers wake. Remember, remember, for kindred's sake. Inauthentic. This finds its origins in Das Buch von Grabkrieg, perhaps an artifact of translation, but it doesn't follow the poetic forms seen elsewhere. Exclude. Seek not the blood of thine own elder. This properly belongs to the valediction against diablerie in the Chronicle of Shadows, not the Proverbs. So the Book of Nod is split into different chronicles, and I assume the idea behind that card is that this was a bit of a sorting exercise. So what goes where? Do we include it? Do we not include it? Let's hold on to it just in case someone else thinks that it should go somewhere. Embrace not love, for love in my embrace will grow cold, wither, and die. This passage properly belongs in Cain's words on progeny in the Chronicle of Shadows, though it is similar to another passage in Cain's commandments. And again, thou shalt not embrace love. This passage appears to belong to Cain's commandments in the Chronicle of Shadows rather than the Proverbs. The prohibition against embracing a lover occurs multiple times in the body of work. Exclude. Never forget your sire's sire, Cain the Wanderer. This passage again belongs to Cain's commandments in the Chronicle of Shadows rather than the Proverbs. Nearly there, folks. In quiet you will know beauty, in beauty you will know truth, in truth you will know love, in love you will know quiet. This passage is attributed to the progenitor of the clan of the Rose, so Toreadors. So not a proverb. And the last one, be those who walk without a clan, for they will be our undoing. This is a passage from the Signs of Gehenna, though oft quoted as a proverb. And it's very interesting because they could be talking to the Kaitef, who are clanless, though talking about it as a sign of Gehenna, they're probably trying to refer or attribute it to a portend of thin bloods. But it could be either. And that, my dears, is the stack o' cards for those included in the Proverbs section of the Book of Nod. That many. And those collected and not that many. It's almost double. Yeah. So many Proverbs. So not all of them made it into the book, Valkians. So the idea is that a lot of the bits and pieces that were included in the crate of things were bits and pieces that had been collected and then sorted through to try and figure out whether or not they should be included. Now, I promised you earlier that we would go through how I approach writing a one-shot, but we are going to take a small break and I will be back in about 5 minutes and we can go through that. So go and stretch, hydrate, sink your fangs into something delicious, and come back in 5 minutes, folks. Okay, that was quicker than 5 minutes. Soz. Okay, so my approach to writing one-shots. Going from a Vampire the Masquerade approach. I've written a couple of one-shots for other systems, but VTM is what I am most known for writing. I use a 3-part or 3-act system. The way I do this, or the reason I do this, is because it allows me then to take a one-shot and split it out into 3 different acts for recording. So I write a one-shot every year, at least one. And generally, it will also be recorded. So if you're trying to get a bit of, I guess, a longer lifespan out of the thing that you're doing, 3-shot, 3-act. Know what your mystery resolution is, or what you would like it to be, and know how you're going to plonk your players into the system. The middle is where you give the clues, and the players will screw it up infinitely. And that's the fun part of it. So, three-act structure always works every single time. I always start with what is going on, because that informs me when I'm writing it. If my players swerve left instead of going right the way I anticipated, I can pick up what I was going to put in their way and plonk it down somewhere else. Try and make your clues modular. Sure, it might be great to make them go to person X to find out clue Y, and it might make complete sense that they are the only person that has that knowledge, but that person doesn't always have to stay where you think they should be. What have we got? The problem with me is that I sometimes have a beginning or an ending, but hard to figure out the middle with my ideas. 100%. The middle is always the hardest bit. And it's the bit that I contend with for the longest. I can write potential outcomes. So all of my stories have at least 4 potential outcomes with scenarios. attached to them. If they find X, if they decide Y, that gives you a different outcome to something else that they do. My suggestion for trying to figure out the middle is take a look at what your resolution is. What is your solution? What is the ending? And what will your players need to know to come to that ending? Put those as bullet points for things that need to happen in the middle. And then build your world around those things. So, for Vampire the Masquerade, it takes place in a city most of the time because that's easiest to try and plonk things into. There's been a precious artifact, the Book of Nod. A scrap of the Book of Nod has made its way into the city. It was supposed to go to the prince, but it's gone missing. Your player group has been tasked with finding it. Cool. So either they find the scrap and present it back to the prince, or they find the scrap and they don't take it back to the prince and sell it to the highest bidder, basically, or they keep it for themselves, or they just don't find it. They're your three possible outcomes. What do they need to find where the scrap is? Well, they need to talk to the prince, potentially, or an advisor of the prince. They need to talk to someone who helped the prince get it in, because prince won't organize that sort of thing by themselves. So maybe they need to talk to a traveling Ravnos who happened to come into the city and is an artifact dealer. And that's how they travel around the world. And they might have some information. Oh, I was told to drop it off here because the prince didn't have time to meet with me. Cool. Well, now you've got a new location that your players can go to. Don't write the middle. If you try and write a narrative for how your players are going to find stuff out, they will never follow the story, ever. Ever. Give them the clues. Write the clues, write the locations. So you want clue, person, potential location. Because another thing that is going to help your story seem more real and more living and breathing is that stuff is always going on. And if the players don't get to this place at this time, they probably won't be following your script. So you need to, one, make enough clues that they can skip 2 or 3 and still maybe kind of come to a right conclusion. Don't be afraid of railroading them just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Having them confused and not knowing where they need to go and being able to go, okay, so what do you know right now? You know X, you know Y. What would be a good inference for this? Help them be the detectives. Set them up for success, not by giving them all of the information straight up, but by helping them start drawing conclusions, because they may come up with new locations that they want to go to and new people that they want to speak to that you haven't figured out. They may want to go to the head of the Malkavian clan to see if they can get a prophecy for where this thing is, rather than following the lines of clues. And you kind of have to roll with that. So yeah, if you as the person who is running the game knows what is going on in the background, the prince asks the Ravnos antiquities dealer to bring the scrap of the Book of Nod to a secret, secure location for a dead drop. And only 3 people in the city know that this deal was going down. How did it not happen? Well, either someone has double-crossed the prince, which is a great setup, because then you're getting into politics and the idea that something else is going on in the city, and you're not privy to all of the information. And you don't need to be to solve the case. You just need to know someone's double crossing the prince. And if you're using your one shot as a setup for like a jump start for a longer game, that's a great way, because then you go back to the prince and you go, no, we didn't find it, but here's what we did find out, or yes, we found it, and also, did you know? Which sets them down another path of the prince is like, cool, go deal with that for me now. And then that becomes your longer chronicle of delving into the politics of the city, finding out who's double crossing who and why. Do you want to be on their payroll, or do you want to go back to the prince? Do you want to get the prince out of the city? Sets up a bunch of ideas and things that you can throw at them. But yeah, insofar as a one shot is concerned, know what is going on, and just make it one sentence. Blah-de blah wants blah-de blah, or something has gone missing, or someone was shot, or someone was killed and they don't know why. Put your players in a position where this is the only thing that they can do. So a lot of my one shots are set in Australia, and I will set up my players of, you've been traveling Australia, you have screwed up at every job that you have done. This is your last chance. This is your last chance to make it in a city. You gotta, if you can't solve what is going on, you've got to redeem yourself somehow. And that will keep them going. That'll get them invested. Do you have a specific length in mind when making the one shot, or does it just come naturally? Well, I find that the 3-act bit keeps it relatively short. And knowing the primary clues that your party needs to find helps you keep an eye on the time. I tend to make mine a bit flexible with time because, as I said, I either so when I run my games at Conquest versus PAX versus when I'm running them myself, they've each got very different time frames. PAX is really hard to run a one shot in. It's a very short period of time, and you've got to do safety introductions, general premise, how to read a character sheet, and then go. And it's a very tight time frame. So what I tend to do is I will write my 3-act one shot, and then if there's a bit of a time crunch, I will carve it right down. You may not get to meet the prince, you may not get to role play that out, but you will be given all that information as a monologue, pretty much. I find for vampire one shots, no more than 3 hours. D&D, 3 hours is a bit difficult anyway, but if you're going with like physical combat games like D&D, that can be really exciting and that can keep people going. Vampire's very mental, it's very political, it's very social oriented, and that's really tiring, especially for people who, maybe aren't as comfortable in a social setting. And also, if it's a new system with a bunch of terminology and a bunch of laws and things like that, it's really hard to wrap your head around it. So, 3 hours. Just 3 hours. That gives you enough time to go a little bit under if everyone was like, whoa, that was good. Yeah, let's do it again. And it gives you a little bit of extra time. Like if you extend over to 3.5, 4 hours, it's still an okay time frame. But yeah, I would not say any longer than that, because then it just gets too draining and too tiring. And you kind of get to the end of attention spans and people start winding down and they disconnect, and then they're not left with that was fun. That was a good bunch of time and that was fun. I want to do it again. Yeah. Bullet point. If you don't want to write out your middle section, bullet point it. Is probably my number one takeaway for one shots. I do that for D&D one shots as well. Know what's happening, know where they've got to go, bullet point all the things that could happen in the middle, because then you can just pick it up and plonk it around wherever your players decide to go. Any other questions? That was a really rush. Maybe I'll do a stream one day and we'll just write a one shot. It sounds like you need to go to sleep. Well, I hope that going through this shenanigans was fun for you. You are so welcome. I do this stuff for fun, and I am a firm believer in all knowledge is worth having and sharing. So if I can share my knowledge and it helps somebody, for some value of help, I am more than happy to share. Well, it is getting to the end of my stream time anyway, so I want to thank everybody for coming along and watching. Thank you so much. Next time, I think we might go back to one of the characters that I was making on stream. We might finish Cursed Bob. So I am going to be probably back on Monday night, and we will finish Cursed Bob. Until then, stay safe, stay spooky, and sink your fangs into something delicious, folks. Have a good night.